Hello, this is Xbox Ahoy, and this is the 14th episode of my Black Ops 2 weapon guide. This time, we're covering the combat knife. This bladed weapon has been long present, but Black Ops 2 is the first time we've seen the knife as an equippable standalone. Of course, bladed instruments have a long history in warfare, from the flint tools of the Neolithic era through early forged iron and steel. Since the dawn of such tools, soldiers have wielded bladed weapons, and even since the introduction of firearms, knives remain standard issue today. The modern combat knife has its origins in the bayonet, a blade designed to lock onto the muzzle of a rifle and provide close-range offensive backup where a slow-firing fusilier might otherwise be left helpless. Of course, modern automatic weapons and the move away from formation warfare means bayonets are less useful today than they have been in the past. But the modern combat knife still proves useful in a variety of circumstances. Whether used as a wire cutter, bottle opener, or as a last-ditch offensive tool, the knife remains an important part of military doctrine and is unlikely to disappear anytime soon. In-game, the knife is always a one-hit kill weapon, assuming you can score a successful hit. Its range is minuscule, however. You must be within touching distance of your opponent, and even then a kill is not guaranteed. There are two primary modes of attack, the slash and the stab. The slash is a very short range attack that can be performed rapidly and repeatedly. The stab or lunge extends your reach slightly but has a correspondingly increased recovery time. The lunge is performed when an enemy is within a suitable distance ahead of you. However, there is no guarantee it will connect, which may leave you vulnerable. The default slash attack takes around half a second, yielding 120 such slashes a minute. The lunge is some degree slower than this, taking almost a full second to complete. There's no need to worry about recoil or aim time with the knife, but in terms of handling traits, the knife's mobility is higher than any other weapon. Movement speed is 100% of the maximum base speed, the same as an SMG or shotgun, but you also gain a 50% bonus to your endurance, allowing you to sprint for 1.5 times as long. Another key advantage the knife has is that it has no ammunition to deplete, nor any reload to perform. While its killing potential might be limited, at least you can always rely on your blade should all other ammunition be expended. Our build of the combat knife is a Perk-heavy one, taking the maximum allotment of 6 perks in total for a class with unparalleled mobility, with a side order of stealth. First up, the Perk 1 Greed wildcard will allow us to take 2 perks from the first tier, with 2 important cornerstones of our build. Lightweight is our first choice, granting a 7% buff to movement speed and eliminating all fall damage. Mobility is an essential part of a knife-only build, as getting close to your opponent is a core stratagem, as is evading unfavourable circumstance. Next up, Ghost will help grant radar immunity whilst on the move, an important trait should your enemy favour the UAV score streak. Your blade will perform best when you approach your enemy from an unexpected angle, and to have your position compromised by the UAV is to have much of your tactical advantage lost. Running Ghost will leave your opponent deliciously unaware of your presence all the more often. Next up, Perk 2 Greed permits 2 choices from Tier 2. Our choices here enhancing stealth and supply. Cold-blooded is our first perk in this tier, rendering you immune to the more exotic sights. But perhaps more importantly, it will also remove the red name above your head. This will allow you to lurk dangerously in dark corners more effectively, and can buy you critical time in close quarters. Enough time, perhaps, for your steel to meet flesh. Scavenger is our 4th perk, and while its utility is limited on a class with no weapons, this perk will permit continued use of your tactical grenades, enhancing the usefulness of a later point spend. Perk 3 Greed rounds out our all-in perk selection wildcards, permitting 2 choices from the final tier. First is Extreme Conditioning, doubling your sprint endurance for the utmost mobility potential. This benefit will stack with the combat knife's intrinsic 50% endurance bonus, making for marathon-grade performance that will allow you to stay on the move almost constantly. Our 6th and final perk is Tactical Mask, protecting you from flash grenades, concussions, and shock charges. It's the latter that pose the major threat to a knife-only build, although anything that severely hinders your ability to move can make for a fatal circumstance. When your enemy resides complacent behind a layer of shock charges, the ability to charge straight through without impediment is a very useful one, and thus tactical mask is an almost essential choice when facing enemies with a static bent. Finally, our last point is spent on a single concussion grenade, although scavenger will help ensure a continuous supply. Concussions can be put to use as either an offensive or an evasive tool, halting an enemy in their tracks, a useful means of turning the tables, getting close and eroding their ranged insulation. Equally, in cases where you are outmatched or seemingly doomed to a futile death, the concussion can buy you just enough time to turn tail and flee, free to try another angle of attack without facing impossible odds. That's our build, one making use of the wildcards available for the maximum possible perk payload. 6 perks allows for a wide spread of abilities, and should you pick up an enemy's weapon, you'll have a distinct advantage over a more conventional loadout. Successful use of the combat knife is heavily reliant on timing. Knowing the effective range is vital, as swinging too early might result in a miss, leaving you vulnerable. Pulling off the perfect lunge requires prediction of your enemy's movement, ensuring your foe is dead center and at an ideal range before making your strike. Discretion is the better part of valor, and you'll often find yourself at a disadvantage when wielding only your blade. When pinned down, it's often best to flee instead of being foolhardy and having your futile attempt at aggression shot down. The art of lurking is important to master. If you can anticipate an enemy's movement, you might lurk ahead, hidden behind a corner or doorway, and wait until your enemy enters your domain. Running a knife-only build calls for a careful mix of rapid movement and blending in with the shadows. It is important to change up your pace as to best leverage your position. It's also wise to keep an eye on your health. If you're injured, wait until your health recovers before exposing yourself to any further risk. Often you'll need to sponge a couple of bullets during a charge, so to enter such conflict in a fragile state might prove your undoing. In any case, it is generally unwise to run headlong at an opponent. Striking from behind or the side will yield far more reliable kills. Ideally, your quarry will never know you were there, but a non-linear approach works very well in tandem with your concussion grenades. Stunning an enemy gives you time to close a gap, but taking a straight line towards an enemy facing you might give them a chance to gun you down. You'll fare far better taking a less direct tack and striking from the side instead. The combat knife is an ever-present part of your arsenal, equippable as a standalone without the need to spend a point. While its worth as a weapon is reflected by its cost, it does open up a challenging, alternative style of play, a ninja-esque blend of motion and stealth. The knife is also a stalwart reserve weapon. Should you choose to go without a secondary, you won't be left entirely helpless once you deplete your primary supply. To say the knife is a competitive weapon would be misleading, however. You would be ill-advised to take naught but a knife to a gunfight. Inconsistent performance will prove frustrating, and the tiny range means you will be gunned down all too often when en route to a kill. Still, without such a challenge, there would be not as great a reward, and the novel playstyle the knife brings makes for a certain degree of refreshment. To cut to the chase, whether your blade serves as a backup or the basis for an entire build, hone your ninja-like abilities, keep a sharp wit about you, and your enemy will certainly get the point. Thanks for watching. This has been Xbox Ahoy. Join me next week when I'll be covering the TAC-45. Until then, farewell.